You don't owe your parents anything. Whether they realize it or not, that's not on you. That's on them. They need to recognize that. If they don't recognize it and they're butthurt because you decided to move cross country, you decided not to come to Sunday dinners, you decided that it was too toxic, you decided to whatever, that's on them. "30 true things you need to know now." Number 3, true things you need to know. It is difficult to remove by logic an idea not placed there by logic in the first place. I will tell you this, most ideas in your head, most beliefs, most preferences, most insistences are actually emotion-based. They were placed in your head by emotion, whether it was your mom who placed it there, your dad who placed it there, or you placed it there. It was placed by emotion, not logic. In my experience, therapists waste a lot of time trying to convince people to relinquish behaviors that make no sense, that are maladaptive, that appear illogical. You guys want to read along? Should I flip the camera around so y'all see the book? Tell me which would be easier. Behaviors that make no sense, that are maladaptive, that appear illogical. For example, a man returns home from work and the first thing out of his mouth is, "This place is a mess." His children scatter and his wife, who just got home from her work and picking the kids up from daycare, is angry. Their evening is off to a bad start. Hearing this story, the therapist points out that it is a predictably bad idea to criticize a tired wife at the end of a long day. All agree that this is a correct observation. But the behavior doesn't change, or the criticism simply migrates to another issue. True. Both people remain unhappy with each other and conflict between them continues. So what's going on here? Why do people not seem to understand that criticism begets anger and unhappiness? And I've said criticism is the cause of unhappiness. There is no single answer to this question, of course, but confronting deeply held habitual feelings and attitudes. That's interesting. I never thought about our feelings and attitudes are habitual. Think about that word for a little bit. My feelings are habitual. I feel this way chronically. I have this attitude chronically. I have this attitude towards my kids. I say I love them, but I yell at them every time when I come home from work. I say that my children are my world, but I criticize their choice of spouse or work or whatever. My deeply held habitual feelings. That's so powerful. And attitudes with logic seldom works. The things we do, the prejudice that we hold, and the repetitive conflicts that afflict our lives are seldom the products of rational thought. In fact, we operate in the world mostly on autopilot, doing the same things today that didn't work yesterday. Didn't work yesterday. It didn't work yesterday. Doing the same things today that didn't work yesterday. One would think that a process of learning or maturation would cause us to alter our behavior in response to unpleasant consequences. Anyone who has watched an average golfer play knows that this is not true. In fact, it sometimes seems that we are so trapped in ineffectual life patterns that we are playing out the old military adage, if it doesn't work, double it. The motivations and habit patterns that underlie most of our behavior are seldom logical. We are much more often driven by impulses, preconceptions, and emotions, of which we are only dimly aware. See, he agrees with me. We're driven by impulses, preconceptions, and emotions, but he adds the psychological effect, which is that we are dimly aware that we have these emotions. In the example above, the man returning home is subject to feelings of discontent evoked by his unsatisfying job or lengthy commute. He longs for some control over his life that proves maddeningly elusive. He enters his home in the hope of refuge, but is confronted only by more obligations and disorder. This is not the life he imagined. That's it. Life has killed the dreams I dreamed. This is not the life he imagined. So who is responsible? If most of our behavior is driven by our feelings, however unclear they may be, it follows that, remember these chronic, habitual feelings, it follows that to change ourselves, we must be able to identify our emotional needs and find ways of satisfying them that do not offend those upon whom our happiness depends. If we wish, as most of us do, to be treated with kindness and forbearance, we need to cultivate those qualities in ourselves. I've never thought about forbearance as being a quality. That's interesting. Like, I guess that'd be the equivalent of giving, we say giving ourselves grace, giving someone else grace. That's forbearance, I guess. To be treated with kindness and forbearance, we need to cultivate those qualities in ourselves. Whenever I talk with couples in conflict, it is striking how similar are their desires. To be respected, to be listened to feel that they are the center of their partner's life. What else could we possibly want in a relationship? It is what people mean when they speak of love. To say that one must give to receive, that we reap as we sow, is to mouth platitudes. Oh, damn. Yet, what could be truer? Why then is it so difficult to do? Like, we say in order to give, in order to receive you must give, that you must sow if you want to reap, but we don't do it. We don't believe it, we don't do it. Why is it so difficult to do? Like most explanations of why we act as we do, the answer lies in our past experience. As children, we are entitled to the unconditional love of our parents. But few of the people I talk to feel as though they received it. Do you feel like you received your parents' unconditional love? That's interesting. Probably. On the contrary, most childhood memories are frightened with a sense of an unspoken obligation to make my parents proud by succeeding in school, staying out of trouble, making a suitable marriage, and producing grandchildren. Many are the ways that parents instill a sense of obligation in their children. Isn't that true? Like, as a big person, we make a little person feel obligated to us. That's so powerful. By accepting life and nurturance, a child apparently incurs a debt that can be repaid only by meeting parental expectations. How fucked up is that? A child feels that they incurred a debt that can only be repaid by meeting a parental expectations. Wow. It's so interesting. This book has really given me a lot to think about my own parenting. My own, how I interact with Mason and how I interact with Milani, Kizzy. Pauline says, no, I did not get my parents' unconditional love. It's something to think about. My dad and I were tight. He worked hard. He never went to any of my shit. Not really. But he didn't have to. Much is made of the burdens of parenthood, starting with the pain of childbirth, the loss of sleep with infancy, amen, the endless driving required by organized activities, the stress of adolescent conflict, culminating in the expense of college. Each stage of upbringing is a frequent source of parental complaint, suggesting a kind of martyrdom, like, oh, I'm dying. Is it any surprise that there should be some feeling of reciprocal obligation on the part of children? This question, what do I owe my parents, frequently distorts people's lives well into and sometimes throughout adulthood. In fact, our children owe us nothing. Wow, italicized. In fact, our children owe us nothing. It was our fucking decision to bring them into this world. If we loved them and provided for their needs, it was our task as parents, not some selfless act. We knew from the beginning that we were raising them to leave us, and it was always our obligation to help them do this unburdened by a sense of unending gratitude or perpetual debt. This writing is so powerful. Well-functioning families are good at letting their children go. Let your children go. Remember, we were those children. We were those children, right? Poorly functioning families tend to hold on to them. Dude, so many of y'all, I'm talking to you in the tribe. You guys have this, like we talked about it. Poor functioning families tend to hold on to them, hold on to the kids. You guys have umbilical issues. When I encounter homes where children continue to live, often unhappily, long into adulthood, I have the feeling that the same conflicts and separation anxieties are being worked on over and over, but never resolved. The shared fantasy appears to be that we'll keep at this until we get it right. Sometimes it never happens. I know of families with young adults in their 20s and 30s in which the parents still lie awake until the kids are home, where arguments over chores and meal times reflects a longing for the past and a fear of an independent future. There is a kind of shared commitment to not changing the family. Wow. There is a kind of shared commitment to not changing the family. The young people trade their chance at autonomous lives in exchange for the security of a familiar, the devil that I know, versus the devil that I don't know. Familiar, childlike existence that serves to reassure their parents that they need not relinquish the responsibilities on which their sense of themselves depends. In these families, the roles are familiar and well-defined, and one has the impression of watching a well-rehearsed play in which each of the players has become so practiced that the idea of closing down the production and moving on is extremely anxiety-provoking. Closing down the production and moving on is extremely anxiety-provoking. So many families, it seems like it's just like a production. It's for show. It's the same old, same old. It's curtain call every night. Dinner time, breakfast, morning. Finally, when struggling to overcome maladaptive behaviors by the use of logic, one is often confronted with the fact that some ignorance is invincible. Some ignorance is invincible. People can become so wedded to their particular view of how things should work that they ignore all evidence that suggests that change is necessary. Good God, he wastes no words. Oh, that's the last sentence. People can become so wedded to their particular view of how things should work that they ignore all evidence that suggests that change is necessary. I find this interesting because the title of this is difficult to remove by logic, an idea not placed there by logic in the first place. And somehow he ties it into parents and their kids and our backgrounds and why we keep doing the same things over and over again, our dysfunction. And he's like building up to like change. He's getting to the root cause of why we need to change. I'm like, wow, that's powerful. Powerful. And he's like, you're trying to do it with logic. This should work. It worked for my parents. No, it didn't. No, it didn't, because you're oblivious to it. You can't see it. Man, like, Erica's family needs to read that chapter. That is a good chapter. So tomorrow's chapter 4, the statute of limitations has expired at most of our childhood traumas. So he's setting you up. He's setting you up for, like, your childhood traumas. It's done. The statute of limitations is over. And maybe it's because we hold on to this belief that family is supposed to be a certain way. And it's not. Kids are supposed to go live their own lives, man. They don't owe you anything. You know, Mason doesn't owe me anything. That's powerful. There's no sense of debt. I want her to be happy. I want her to grow up big and strong and happy. I want her to grow up big and strong, be happy, and love whoever she wants to love, even at the expense of my not having any grandbabies. she's pretty boy. All indications would be that she is a heterosexual. So don't freak out. But I'm just saying, if she wasn't or didn't or changed or whatever, there are plenty of trans parents who are like, my little girl was such a girly little girl. I don't know what happened. I'm not gonna keep expectations on Mason. That's really powerful. This idea that your kids don't owe you anything. So if you put it to yourself, it's also true. You don't owe your parents anything. Can I have an aha here? Like, you don't owe your parents anything. So many people think like, well, I have to take care of them in their old age. I'm like, why you? And why not the other 5 siblings? The other 5 siblings somehow got out of it. But you're the one who decides that you have to take care of your mom and dad? Maybe you want to. But you do it, if you want to, you do it out of a sense of love. Do it out of a sense of, pride, of connection. But don't do it out of a sense of guilt. Don't do it out of a sense of this feeling of indebtedness. So, you don't owe your parents anything. Whether they realize it or not, that's not on you. That's on them. They need to recognize that. If they don't recognize it and they're butthurt because you decided to move cross country, you decided not to come to Sunday dinners, you decided that it was too toxic, you decided to whatever, that's on them. They're the ones who are butthurt. They're the ones who are attached. They're the ones who believe things should be a certain way. They're the ones with that ignorance that can't be overcome. Because in their heads, they think, well, logically, this should work. It's work. And they'll say, it's worked for millennia, for centuries. No. There was a time when 13-year-old girls were sold off to old men. We don't do that anymore, mostly. There were times when you could beat a kid to death. Not even black and blue, but beat them to death. And you'd be okay. There was a time when a grown-up neighbor, could slap the neighbor's child, could slap your child, and you would think it's okay because the kid must have done something wrong. That's just not okay. So I don't owe anything to my dad. I don't have to be a success for my dad's legacy to live on. I don't have to be. If I want to be wealthy, I can be wealthy for my own legacy. If I want to be happy, I can be happy for myself, not because my dad risked everything. He did it, and he let go. He sent me off to the big city. He didn't check up on me. He came to visit once or twice, but nothing for those 5 years, I was gone. Med school. Never came to med school until the day I graduated. Talk about autonomy. Maybe my dad was aware that I didn't owe him anything. Even when he was older, he didn't expect me to take care of him. Isn't that funny? I think that's the way to do it, Christina. You gotta, I don't know, but you can't, you love her so much, but the feeling of owing, you just said it, I feel I owe my mom. That is obligation. That's what owing means. Christina, that's what owing means. It's an obligation. You can love her and you can be around her. You can take care of her. But it's the feeling of the obligation that's the problem. Right? I was telling Erica, man, sometimes, every day I think of my dad. Every day I miss my dad. And then every now and then I told Erica, I was like, I don't know if I want him here. He's 42, he was born in 42, so he'd be 81 this year. And even at 65, he was starting to lose his memory. The usual stuff, he'd walk into a room and go, I forgot why I was here. Why did I come in this room? We would laugh about it. And then there were times when he would tell me or ask me or remind me to do things that we'd already talked about. We've already talked about that. And it's just simple real early signs of old aging dementia. So then I thought well, maybe if he was still alive today, he's 81, I might be changing his diapers. I might have a silver alert. He might wander off and get lost. He shouldn't be driving. He should, all this sort of stuff, Some of the stuff that Erica is going through, her other grandmother, the one that I fixed the yellow house for, her memory's going. Her hearing's bad. It's not good. And they keep treating her like she's independent. I'm like, dude, I've been saying for like two years, I'm like, she shouldn't be driving. We've been here 4 years, and I said that 4 years ago. Like, she shouldn't be driving. So, yet her family, her kids, are just like, no, nothing's wrong. Nothing's wrong with mommy. Nothing's wrong. I'm like, dude. Just the other week, she backed out of her carport with her driver door open, and it ripped the driver door off. And they were laughing about it. I was like, why are you laughing? Do you not see that, like this person has severe dementia? If you get into a car and you don't remember to close your car door, or you don't realize the car door is even open and you just back out, like, it's just bizarre to me. So, and I was telling Erica, I was like, there's going to be a lot of suffering when she dies. There's going to be a lot of arguing, a lot of blah, 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 back and forth, yada, yada, yada. So, I don't need to be a part of it. You don't need to be a part of it. Now, let's flip the script. For those of you who have children and now have grandbabies, that was an interesting comment. Like, you owe me a grandbaby. Like, dude, stop saying that. Maybe they don't want to have kids. Maybe he's closet gay. Maybe she's dating a girl. Why do we do that? Come on now, I want a grandbaby. Like, I don't owe you shit. I remember Erica's mom said that to me. Like, come on, Doug, get to work, Duckster. I want a second grandbaby. And I'm like, so? I don't care. That's not up to you. Maybe we don't want to have a second grandbaby, much less a third grandbaby. Like, it's just so bizarre, the things people say and do and justify. So all I can do is control myself, right? Like, all I can do is control how I feel towards Mason. And I really, really don't want her to feel obligated to me. I really want her to be happy, And then I guess you could say the same thing about your significant other. Like this example is about a husband and a wife. So I don't want Erica to feel obligated. I don't want to be like, and I did this the other day. I was like, girl, you don't pay for anything. She was complaining about how expensive something was. And I said, you know why? And she goes, why? I said, because you don't pay for anything. You don't. I was like, that's the price of things. I pay for everything. And now I think about it, I go, that was me. That was me saying, you owe me. And she doesn't owe me shit. I should do it out of my love and kindness and the fact that I make more money than her. Like, why do I feel that? Why do I need to rub her nose into it? I don't. I shouldn't have. I should apologize. I should be a better man.